So, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. It's not your typical self-help book. It's better to think of it as a map, a kind of philosophical map for a really tough journey, the one we're all on, right? The journey right through the chaos and suffering that are just an unavoidable part of being human. It asks this fundamental question. When everything feels completely overwhelming, how in the world do we find a path forward?
You know, the book kicks off with this great little joke about Moses coming down from the mountain. He tells the crowd, "I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is I got God down from 15 commandments to 10. And of course the crowd cheers. The bad news, he says, adultery is still in. And that just brilliantly illustrates our relationship with rules, doesn't it? We know we need them, but yeah, we don't want too many of them.
So that brings up the question, why, despite our resistance, do we need rules at all? Well, the book argues it's because of a fundamental human paradox.
See, on the one hand, we desperately want to be free, but at the same time, we're all searching for some kind of structure, something to hold on to that helps us make sense of it all. And this search for structure, that's the core human need this book is trying to address, because without it, we're just lost. We're lost in uncertainty and all the really tough emotions that come along with it. The rules, then, are offered as a kind of map for our own lives.
Okay, so to really understand the rules, we first have to understand the map of reality the book lays out. And this map is based on a really ancient and powerful idea that represents the fundamental nature of existence itself, what the book simply calls being. This model breaks reality down into two big opposing principles. It's a lot like the Taoist symbol of yin and yang. On one side, you've got order. That's the known world, society, structure, your plans. And on the other side, you've got chaos. That's the great unknown. It represents potential, nature, and pretty much everything that lies outside of our control.
Now here's the crucial point. A meaningful life isn't found by just hiding out in order, and it's not found by getting totally lost in chaos either. No, it's found by walking the narrow path right between them. This is what the book calls the way. It's this state of balance, where you have one foot planted in what you know and the other foot stepping into what you're still exploring.
So you might be wondering, how does this big, abstract map translate into actual practical advice? Well, that's exactly what the rules are for. They're guides for walking this narrow path, starting with our relationship to the world of order, the world of social structures and hierarchies.
This brings us to the book's first and most famous rule, and it all starts with a very strange question. What could an ancient crustacean possibly teach us about how to live? I know it sounds weird, but the answer has everything to do with something we share deep down in our biology.
Dominance hierarchies. They are not a modern invention. They're an ancient feature of nature. Lobsters, just like humans, are constantly sizing each other up, competing for territory and for status. In your brain, whether you like it or not, is doing the exact same thing.
And this creates this incredibly powerful feedback loop. The first rule, stand up straight with your shoulders back, isn't just about good posture. It's a physical signal of confidence. When you adopt this posture, your brain chemistry can actually change. It can produce more serotonin, which in turn makes you feel less anxious, more confident, and ready to face challenges. You begin to signal to yourself and to others that you are competent. But this is so much more than just a life hack. On a deeper level, standing up straight is a metaphysical stance. It means you're choosing to face the demands of life voluntarily. You're responding to a challenge instead of just bracing for a catastrophe.
So standing tall helps you navigate the hierarchies of order, but the path of meaning also demands that we turn around and confront chaos, the unknown, the painful, the parts of reality we'd really rather ignore. And you know how we often do that? Through deception. The book introduces this concept of the life lie. This is when you use your words and actions not to articulate reality, but to manipulate it, to avoid conflict, or to get what you want in the short term. It's when you go to engineering school just to please your parents, knowing full well it's not what you want. It's a betrayal of your own experience. And the antidote to the life lie is truth. By telling the truth, or at the very least, by deciding not to lie, you force yourself to confront reality as it is. And this doesn't just clear up your own life. The book argues that it's the ultimate defense against both personal resentment and societal tyranny, because both of those things always flourish in an atmosphere of deceit. This constant battle between truth and falsehood brings us to the book's central moral choice. It frames a well-lived life not as a pursuit of happiness, but as a decision between two different modes of being.
First, there is expediency. This is the path of least resistance. It's doing what's easy right now, what gratifies you in the moment, and just pushing the consequences off onto your future self. It's the choice to lie to avoid a difficult conversation, or to indulge in a cheap pleasure instead of shouldering a real burden.
The alternative is meaning. This is the choice to sacrifice something of value now to make the future better. It's the acceptance of responsibility. It's the decision to tell the truth even when it's incredibly difficult, because you know it builds a more solid foundation for tomorrow.
And this, right here, is the core of the antidote to chaos. The book doesn't promise to eliminate suffering. In fact, it argues that suffering is just inevitable. It's part of the deal. But by choosing what is meaningful over what is expedient, you can discover a purpose that's strong enough to make that suffering bearable.
But after all this talk of hierarchies and chaos and sacrifice, the book ends on a surprisingly gentle note. One of the final rules is simple. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
So why this rule? Because it starts from a stark acknowledgement of reality. Life is hard. Bad things happen to good people. We are vulnerable and we are finite. So what do we do in the face of that?
Well, the book tells a story about a calm, self-possessed Siamese cat named Ginger. And just watching this small creature, completely content in her own being, provided a moment of grace. And that's the point. It's to remain alert to the small, beautiful moments that flicker into existence, even on the absolute worst days.
Look, petting a cat won't solve your problems. Of course not. But it is a tiny affirmation of being. It's a reminder that even when you're in the middle of chaos, there are these little pockets of order, these moments of good. It's a way of appreciating the world, despite all its flaws and all its suffering.
In the end, all the rules circle back to this one central idea. From standing up straight to telling the truth, all the way to petting a cat, each one is a way of voluntarily taking on the responsibility of being. And according to this book, that willingness, that's the very definition of a meaningful life.